Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is August the 11th, and we're going to be talking about desperation. Desperation makes people make bad decisions. Or more broadly speaking, desperate people do dumb things. That could be actually the theme of pretty much every Hollywood horror movie. They get put under a little bit of pressure and then people start making awful decisions. And you're like, oh my God, just close the door. Just lock it up. Then you won't have the bad guys coming through the door. Oh, pick up the gun on the ground. You just disarmed the guy. Now take the gun with you, right? Like we're all yelling at the screen. I watched this awful program. It's called Taken. It's based on the prequel idea of the guy that Liam Neeson's character, like that Liam Neeson plays in the movie Taken. And so they're like, what's the backstory? Oh, he's a Green Beret. He came back from combat. And then he learned how to be a real badass by going to OD&I. First of all, that's just out to lunch. And they have this like sort of pretty female, long before Tulsi Gabbard was there, female OD&I, Director of National Intelligence, and she's like individually going on missions and training him how to do stuff. And last night I watched this thing, and it was a Green Beret saving a guy in the woods after a plane crash. It's like maybe the most Green Beret kind of thing. It's like you're one man on survival in the woods, potentially opposition force coming at you, and he sets up trip lines and booby traps, and he uses some white lightning moonshine that he found in some cabin, and he's got this all going on, and then he like lights a guy on fire, and then he goes and he shoots a bad guy by throwing a rock somewhere and distracting him. It's all, kind of, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then he like gets up to there and the guy's gun is broken because he fell. He fell and his AR-15 was broken in this, I guess it was made out of plastic. Anyway, and you're like, take the gun with you. What are you doing? Like, you should be taking ammunition. But he's desperate. So he does dumb things. It's the entire premise of almost every stupid Hollywood movie is like that. And television shows as well. Well, they're doing that in Wisconsin. And for all the people that have come at us, I'll say us, the audience here, for everybody that's kind of come at us in the audience and said, we're going to vote our way out of it. You just have to believe better. You just need to get the right candidates. Well, it seems like Democrats are putting out candidates that are interesting, not to me, but they're interesting to their base, to their audience that's playing it. And then you look at what are the Republicans putting out there? And their two choices are old guys who have lived their whole life and have retired and then said, what about politics? I don't need a reverse home mortgage. I'm basically an advertisement for Viagra at this point. But now that I'm in my late 60s or early 70s, I'd like to try my hand at politics. I spent my whole time doing something else. So let's rock. And then the other version of it is like, I'm 24 years old. I don't know what to do with my life. Maybe I should be a congressman. Maybe I should vote on things that affect the entire world. I mean, I got married 15 seconds ago, and I just had a baby. And people like me, luckily I'm young and handsome, even though I don't know anything, let's go. Maybe I should be one of the 535 people that make decisions for the entire country. The audacity of that is also high. And so when you see Democrats fielding someone who's like a business owner and has, lived some life and whatever, got divorced and doesn't know how to maintain a marriage and failed at a couple of businesses and they all went under, and then they're like, hey, I have some life experience. You're like, well, I mean, you do. And they're in their mid-30s, you think, I could see why people would find that to be somewhat more interesting than a 26-year-old sort of just got out of childhood, graduated college after I'd been kicked out of the FBI and I've been only doing this job 4 years. That guy, Or the guy who's in his late 60s, who's statistically hitting close to life expectancy. When you're desperate, you make dumb decisions. And if you have no other choices, you're like, crappy wild card. Let's roll the dice. I don't know. I'm watching this happen in Wisconsin as just kind of, I have no skin in the game. I don't live in Wisconsin. It doesn't make any sense to me. I have friends in Wisconsin. My buddy Garrett O'Boyle lives there. I don't know how Wisconsin is that. My father was raised in Wisconsin. I went to Wisconsin a bunch when I was a kid. Never saw this as a communist type place. But if you're gonna run democratic socialism and it actually is giving people a run for their money, it's a hell of a thing to be exploring in 2026. We're going to go over the Iran war and the morass that is the ongoing lies, unfortunately, of Donald Trump from the White House. And then Republicans think that they have potential fertile ground to sow, I don't know, discontent with the previous administration, even though they own some of it. They're going to try to make as much as they can about vaccines and COVID again. And I think Rand Paul should actually get credit for reintroducing this topic by bringing that hearing with Anthony Fauci, which, by the way, was devastatingly ridiculous. I guess it pointed out how Anthony Fauci wasn't going to say anything, wasn't going to incriminate himself. So they got essentially nothing except like sound bites of him saying the same thing over and over again 111 times. But what it did do is show that Americans are still pissed about COVID, and rightly so. And apparently it's about 19% of the population. So it's somewhere between 10 and 20% of the population is kind of the estimates of people who said, under no circumstances am I going to do this. So 1 in 5 people in America kind of resisted what I would say was one of the biggest psyops of all time. Now, maybe the COVID shots did nothing bad at all, but I'm not confident they did anything good either. And so now the Trump administration is trying to play both sides of it. They're like, hey, we're going to jump back in on this MAGA thing. We seem to be sucking pretty aggressively when it comes to the war effort piece. So that's where we're going to go. I just don't see it. I don't see you getting enough traction in the next 87 days or whatever the hell is left before we get into the midterms to be able to say that you're going to pull off a win. And I don't think elections are real, as you guys have heard me say before, but I do think the narrative battle is necessary. And you have to make a plausible case that they can't take it from you. And that's not happening. It's not happening from the GOP. They're not making that happen. So I will continue to stay consistent about that. Let's talk about something else I'm consistent about. There's 2 things. One, you should probably find ways to get off the grid, save your mental health, block your comms from government intervention. And the second thing is you should carry a firearm. So your phone is a tracking device. I don't think that's negotiable. We're worried about Flock and Axon and the other sort of companies that are out there surveilling you. How about the one that you're carrying in your pocket that's answerable to Google and to Apple and to all the other apps that you've downloaded and given access to your permissions because it's easier to find out where you are? Realtor.com or Zillow, because they want to know where you are when you're using the app so they can show you what houses are in the area, but also track all your stuff. Yeah, like that. Okay, government agencies, big tech, corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, take your pick. They all want a piece of the digital footprint. And they don't have to ask if your phone is on. They just take it. So that's why you've got something like Silent. It's Faraday gear. It blocks off wireless signals, and that includes cellular and Wi-Fi and GPS and Bluetooth and RFID and near-field communications and a bunch of other things that are just coming out of your phone at all times. Whether you know it or not, you are constantly doing that. You are always giving access to these people. If you want to shut it down, you got to shut down the signal. You got to put it inside of a Faraday cage. This is a wire mesh that captures all of the signals that would leave from all those different frequencies. And to do so, we'll cut off the breadcrumbs, the remote access. Somebody could, hack your phone, or they could run down a bunch of data like mine did the other day. It also means you can't be tracked. If you guys want to make sure you do that and you want to make sure you carry a firearm, you could do something like this. You can carry this guy. This is the crossbody sling from Silent. This is my personal one. Inside here is a SIG P365 X macro. There you go. You can kind of see it in here right there. It also allows me to carry extra stuff, medical, things like that for my kids, or I can carry camera stuff if I want to take pictures, especially ones that are not connected to my phone. But you can always carry your pistol. You can get off the grid and you have the stuff you need when you need it with you. Very nice option. Very easy to do. This kind of cross-body, off-body carry is what they call it, is something the Secret Service does in their UC roles as they wander around the White House and the National Mall. Ask me how I know. It's an option. It's nice to be able to take it on and off. Maybe you're at the lake and you don't need to have your pistol on you all the time. You're going to go and get in the water, but you want to be able to have it with you and you want to have your phone off. Check them out. Crossbody Sling. They also make it multicam black, which is my favorite. Guys, check out slnt.com/KYLE. There's a link in the show description. Silent.com/KYLE. Promo code Kyle will save you 15% and you'll get free shipping on the qualified orders out there, which is most the more expensive stuff. I think maybe the couple cheaper things like the sleeves may not have it, but all the bigger stuff does. And you get more for your money the more you spend with them. That's just the way it all ends up working. Their bags are very well made. I think they're very thoughtfully set out. Check it out. Silent.com/KYLE. Let's get into today's program. I have a lot of gripes and I've got some information you're not going to hear anywhere else. I can guarantee that because it comes from me. So we're gonna take a look at a couple of reasons why we are not actually winning the way that we had hoped. And I constantly do this, but what I want to always go back to is how do we evaluate the Trump administration? How do we evaluate the things that are happening every day? And for me, I don't need to make up a rubric, right? I don't have to create a category to be able to evaluate whether we're getting what we bought. Here was a story I saw. This is from 2 days ago. This actually came out from Saturday, but I was going to run it yesterday and I ran out of time and chose not to. But I think it fits here. This is in you're panicking. You're not getting what you wanted, so we're going to try to present to you what we're on board. We're going to do vaccine mandate EOs. We're going to mandate less vaccines. This is Donald Trump's tactic to try to steer things backwards. And then you go, okay, well, what else is going on? The United States just promised $1 billion in security aid to Colombia. Just let that sit there for a second. Right-wing president pledges to crack down on drugs. So you have a Trump ally, Las Parillas. He vows to start a profound transformation of the country's destiny as he's sworn in. And we're going to give them money. That doesn't sound very America first. I understand that the argument constantly is well, if we can help out other countries that are doing things that we want to do, then we can get involved in having America first by giving American money away. Where did that money come from? It came out of your pocket. The money comes from taxpayers who theoretically voted for the Trump agenda. Throw something on the screen here real quickly. I'm going to let me size this properly so we can take a look at it. What on earth? That's not what I wanted to do. I tried to put it on the screen. I put it on the wrong screen. Okay, so I got a comment on Spotify. I'm going to share it with you guys right here. Here we go. Okay, this is from Carla on yesterday's show. And yes, I know I'm hiding behind it, but so be it. I wonder if I can actually size that down. Stand by. Carla, we're going to take you down just a notch. Shrink this. There we go. Okay. She wrote, Kyle, I live in central Pennsylvania and our washer broke. It's just myself and my husband, and I went to the laundromat for one wash load. Cost $9 to wash one load. If I had to use their dryers, it would be another $9. I imagine it's pretty warm in PA. Maybe you could line dry it, but that's not what we're used to doing. Now imagine you have a family of 4 who doesn't have a washer and dryer, and you're spending a minimum of $40 per week to wash clothes. That's $1,920 a year. We purchased a new washer dryer pair, which cost us $2,000. Forget the $20 burrito. This is criminal. It costs more to use hot water in that machine than not. Why is that relevant? Because we're talking about giving $1 billion of your taxpayer dollars, of your money, to another country. And I swear, I can't be crazy when I heard that the core promises that were made in the election cycle of 2024 were all about a domestic agenda. At least 18 of 20 of them were domestic. So even when they're pretending to pivot back to pay attention to things like the MAGA agenda, make America healthy, when they want to go back to vaccines, when they want to go out there and point out, you know what? Dr. Fauci really was a villain. And we can show you that Donald Trump was praising Fauci during his first administration. But once you do, if you go back to what we were talking about there, all the things that should be the wins, sealing the border, getting rid of people that were not here legally, those people are all leeching against the American system. Yeah, some of them are paying into it, but they have no right to be here. And if you have no right to be here and you have no social security number, then you can't legally work in this country if you don't have legal status. So the only way you do that is a felony by stealing somebody's information. And it probably won't be someone's information that's retired. It's most likely someone who's very young. They steal your children or your grandchildren's social security number and they work on it. And suddenly when your kid gets their first job at 16, they find out that they have crappy credit and they have a work history that they didn't ever work under. And that's a real thing. It happens all the time. We were going to end inflation. $9 loads of laundry tells me that inflation is ongoing. It's sticky, as the lady on Fox Business called the other day. America is supposed to be the dominant energy producer in the world. That would also be fine, except we've created problems by going after people that make 5% of the oil, and they've disrupted the region where another 15% of the oil in the world is being moved. When the Gulf states are in this spot where they can no longer move the things they want because We're so busy winning the war. We're desperately winning not World War III, but the Middle Eastern war that we were going to restore peace to, and somehow we accidentally got ourselves into. And then on top of all that, we're dropping the strategic oil reserves out. And that should be really scary to people, because the worst of whatever is going to go on in the Iran conflict hasn't hit us yet, as far as I could tell. Let's go back to some of the other winning. By the way, here, let me put it up on the screen just one time. 19, secure the elections. That's going to be some efforts to secure elections. If you're going to do it at the federal level, it sounds like it's the Save America Act. Mike Lee has been banging on about it. He said all year long, we heard that we'll get the Save America Act when we have time, realizing it would likely take a few weeks. We waited patiently while funding DHS and addressing other priorities and expecting to return to it when time allowed. Jake Sherman here stating, this failed by voice vote. It wasn't even a recorded vote. They're getting nothing. They're not even getting what they asked for. So you're getting the theater again. They're telling you what the priorities are by what they actually do. Meanwhile, you've got this conflict between the Mark Levin types who want to see an increased presence in Iran. And then he starts calling people, who you calling neocon? The ground troops in Iran. I heard you say this. You're the whole right. And so he wants to cry about isolationism. This is all how you end up with desperate people that make stupid decisions. People that basically are not politically savvy, are not paying attention. They're like, hey, all I know is it cost me $9 to go wash a load of laundry and another $9 if I want to dry it, plus a couple extra dollars if I want to use hot water. So for my $20 load of washing my laundry, maybe the socialist sounds okay. This is what this is the argument you're seeing on the screen right here is between former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who now does TV and runs a podcast. And he's pointing out that there are people that are chirping in Donald Trump's ear that have been chirping in this ear. This is not a new clip, by the way, of Mark Levin calling for boots on the ground. And then they suddenly want to run away from it like we have the memory of a goldfish. Oh, nobody called for boots on the ground. Guys, Gaetz brings receipts. We'll bring receipts. He's talking about why you would need troops on the ground. Mark Levin. And the difference in time between this is only a couple of weeks. Maybe the craziest part about it is that he thinks that you won't remember, that there isn't evidence of it, or that somehow special operations troops are not actual troops, boots on the ground. There's no way you win this conflict in this way. And then again, the results are catastrophic. And then you've got our president gaslighting us, telling us what? We're in charge of the Strait of Hormuz. We are the guardians of the Hormuz Strait. And we're the ones running the whole thing. Well, it turns out you can pretty easily fact check transponders on ships and find out that is not the case. And prior to the conflict, they were like 135 to 150 ships that would transit on a daily basis. Today, we're getting like 7 to 12, depending on the day. That's a massive reduction. But yeah, nobody's calling for boots on the ground to win. Here's Mark Levin not calling for boots on the ground.
The president has to. People are bringing information to him, and he has to worry about all these things. Now, one other thing. Troops on the ground. He said no troops on the ground. I don't remember that in any campaign speech either.
Really? I don't really remember anybody saying troops on the ground or no campaign speech. I mean, obviously, there was no discussion about troops on the ground. The fact that he said, I am peace, I am the president of peace. Those are not talking about troops on the ground. I remember.
Well, why would we need troops on the ground?
Yeah, why? Ask a question.
Well, there's a lot of
it.
reasons.
Oh, okay.
And we wouldn't need 300,000 of them.
No.
It's this uranium, too.
Oh, yeah, it's uranium.
We've got to get the uranium.
What are you going to do with it?
If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it. For the reason I just said.
Oh,
you can make dirty bombs.
Okay.
And over time, you can still make sophisticated missiles.
Sophisticated missiles? I thought we got rid of those.
You need to get to the uranium.
Okay, so it seems like you're moving the goalpost, remember? Because we all remember you saying this crazy stuff. They told us that we started this war because Israel was going to attack Iran because it didn't like what was going on. Maybe because it was about nuclear weapons. But our end was that the speaker and the Secretary of State got together and they told us something really important. We were going to go after short-range ballistic missile capabilities. And apparently we wiped those out because we won the war back to back to back to back. I really think that somebody should promote Mark Levin to be the top general. And also he should parachute into Iran. He should lead from the front.
That's why I'm reading in the paper, we're talking about the 82nd Airborne, we're talking about these various special forces and the various military services and so forth. He's not talking about sending regular army and infantry in by the hundreds of thousands. The men he's talking about, the units he's talking about, they are specialized. And you know what else? I remember from my days in the Reagan administration, many of them are trained for a moment like this, to try and secure enriched uranium.
Oh, yeah, the old seize the enriched uranium training that you guys all got. I remember that. The very special seize the uranium troops.
Many have been trained for moments like this. I guess what I'm trying to say is we are in good hands. No, not with Allstate, but with President Trump. Because he's a man with enormous intelligence, enormous common sense. He's not an ideologue. He doesn't run around.
He really likes me, and that's why it's so good. He's got a big brain and smart blood. I don't know if you guys know this. President Trump had an uncle that was a professor at MIT. All right? And he taught the Unabomber, even though he didn't. So, are you even worried? Today I made a post that I said, being negative about the stupid slop that people send me is what keeps me positive about the world, because at least I can point out, like, oh, this is ridiculous. You're a ridiculous person. You say dumb things. Here's the Secretary of State telling us what the war was actually about, and apparently it was about short-range ballistic missiles, which we apparently got rid of when we won the first 12 times.
The States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned.
So it sounds like that the orders had already been delegated down to the field level commanders, which means you had decentralized command willing to carry out autonomous missions, which means that you couldn't actually do a decapitation strike to shut it down at the capital area. You couldn't take it down from the command structure and think that it would end the conflict at the local or regionalized levels. So why are we doing this again? I mean, we must have already won, obviously. I mean, if you guys were thinking about it, you were probably thinking, yeah, we've basically won. I think we did. I'm tracking. Okay. Maybe we could rename a military base in honor of the biggest fan of this war. Would that be an option for you? We could name an Air Force base after Lindsey Graham, who is alleged to have been a closet homosexual. And luckily, it's not just an Air Force base. It's partially a naval base. It's a joint base. So it's like half populated by seamen. Seems like Joint Base Lindsey Graham is a great name for it. That's how fast we move. He's barely been buried. They had a state funeral a couple of minutes ago, and now we are renaming the wall outside of this base, which used to be just, it used to be called Joint Base, Charlotte or something like that? This is very important. Is it Charlotte?
The moment has now arrived. With a shared vision for the future and deep respect for our past, together, let us mark this new beginning in 3, 2, 1.
Used to be called Charleston, and now we have Joint Base Lindsey Graham. This is doing nothing for the rumors in the Air Force that you are gay for being in the Air Force. And as a former member of the Air Force, I am deeply upset by seeing that wall. Look how fast they moved to rename something that didn't need to be renamed. Isn't that the same guy that said he was done with Donald Trump? It's incredible. Like, all you got to do is get on the right side of somebody for a few seconds, have a gross war boner that might have killed him, for all we know. Could have been an aneurysm due to war bonerness. He could have gotten too excited from seeing drones in Ukraine that were going to kill Russians, which is very arousing. If you're a 70-something-year-old man who's really into like phallic explosives. Cool. This is how I know we're winning. We're winning so much that we can barely stop winning. Let's go to this one. The United States and Iran are close to a peace arrangement or a deal. It's going to be a peace arrangement or a deal, Pakistan says. Here's what you need to know. This is the one that Donald Trump was saying that we're low-key, we're like semi-negotiating with him. Because he's like a teenage girl, I guess. We're low-key solving this problem. Cool. It's almost over then, again, which is incredible. Some of you guys have been wondering, like, how soon will it be over again, the war? Well, maybe soon again. Some sort of an arrangement is nearly reached, says the Pakistan defense minister. Things are shaping up in favor of a peace arrangement or a deal. Donald Trump told reporters on Monday that we control the Strait of Hormuz, and he said the Iranians' economy is suffering. Do you guys want to hear him say this? This is objectively not true. This is why when you hear the White House say things, you kind of go, probably not accurate. Probably slanted in favor of something that sounds better for you. I know you're fake. I know you're lying, because numbers are numbers. You can actually track ship movements. This is not the case, but the United States Navy has created a steel wall in the middle of the ocean, apparently.
Give us an estimate of when you think the Strait of Hormuz will be.
Well, it's open now. We're taking a lot of shit. It's open now. Look, the only one that has control of the Strait of Hormuz right now is the United States Navy. We have a blockade that's been infallible. It's a steel wall. And we let people in that we want to let in, and those people come in. And
do you guys know what the word infallible means? Because that's not what it means. I always find that fun. We have an infallible wall. It can't be wrong. It's never wrong. It's always correct. This wall made of steel in the ocean. Why does he do that? Why did they let him do that, do you think? What causes this to be the case? Let's carry on.
They've been coming in and they're going out. So it's actually open now. We do not let them go into Iran. They're not admitted into the strait to go to Iran. But it's open for others. Now, a little bit complex because they will, on occasion, drop a mine, and we find the mines. You know, we've mine swept the entire strait, as you probably maybe heard, maybe you didn't hear. But
do you think they've got Donald Trump playing Minesweeper, the old game that used to be able to play on the Windows 3.1? Do you think he's doing Minesweeper, and they're like, "Good job, sir, you found all the mines. Way to go. You're infallible."
But we control the strait 100%. Now,
100% we don't. Again, I don't know what the reason would be for lying about things that are so easily checked. And now, who is the audience for this? This is where I get into I feel better by being negative about bullshit. If you bullshit me and I go, that's not real, and people are like, the problem with you guys is that you're just not positive enough. You're not enjoying enough of what's happening. You're not engaging in the golden age. It's really a perspective issue. Do you remember we learned that from Trump influencer Blake Bricksuit? Here, let me bring back the delusion real quickly, and then we're going to talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which just hit its lowest level since 1982. Awesome.
God bless you. What's your message to America?
You know, my message to America is optimism. There's a lot of people out there with a negative message, and they're getting traction because they're being negative. Look at the good side. Look at the bright side. We are in such a great position to take this victory home and set our country up for such success to continue the golden age. Don't give in to the naysayers out there who are saying that there's nothing good going to happen, because we're in the middle of it and you can make it happen. It's within you to make it happen. That's my message.
I love.
Will some of you guys please stop the negativity and just start making it happen? Can you make the optimism happen? Because that's what we need. Listen, there's socialists that are going to get elected probably because desperate people do dumb things. Desperate people who can't win wars, they end up releasing significant amounts of the strategic petroleum reserve, you know? Desperate people who are trying to win their primary and feel like the election is slipping away from them will empty their strategic oil reserves. There's a major similarity here. If you're looking on this screen, and I'll show you, at the far right-hand side of it, you see this massive dip. That's Joe Biden coming in. So you have a growth, and the growth happens starting in 1982. It starts getting a little bit higher and starts making a sort of a less increase at 1985-ish. And then it continues to grow and kind of peaks out in the early 90s to 95. And up to the late 90s is kind of pretty static. And then you've got 9/11, and then you have this push upward, and it grows up again and again and again. And from 09 to 2011, get a pretty good peak. And then it kind of maintains constancy, and then it gets over to a little drop off in President Trump's first term. Then it just drops like a stone as Biden was dropping it out, trying to compensate for oil prices. And then Trump 2.0 got in. And you guys can see there's a spike. And the spike goes from, it's on the far right-hand side of the graph. It kind of moves upward a little bit. And they're on a pretty good, steady trajectory, as good of a growth trajectory as anybody in any of the time since 1982. And that's under Secretary Chris Wright, who, by all accounts, is a very competent and intelligent energy secretary. He was talking about it. He's like, not only are we working on energy policy, but we're also replacing and we're trying to restock the strategic petroleum reserve. And then the Iran war hits. And then poof, we've plummeted and we've taken it to a new low. So all the gains that were accomplished in the first year were wiped out in the last couple of months. Gone. Like a stone, it's dropping. And that line is as straight or maybe straighter downward than Joe Biden's drop. The trajectory is even more. And you'll notice the interesting thing about this graph is that there is a bottom to the graph, and it equals 0. Right now, it's at 298.7 million. That's barrels of, I guess, crude oil stock. There is a bottom point. The high point was in the 700s. So we are 50% plus depleted. Okay. But luckily, you guys, there's going to be a peace arrangement, or like there's going to be a deal, or there's going to be something. They're shaping up in favor of a something, potentially. Now, the other thing that keeps getting bandied around, and I watched a little back and forth between Joe Kent and Laura Loomer on X yesterday. And it was interesting because this is a citation that Laura Loomer made. She was pointing out something that we covered back at this actual time that this happened. This was a guy who was arrested under the Biden administration. So Donald Trump wasn't president. And it's September 11 of 2024, which means he hadn't been elected as president yet. But there's a Pakistani national who was, quote unquote, tied to Iran due to some training. And they foiled an assassination attempt on a U.S. politician or government official. In this case, it turned out to be Donald Trump. So their point out is that Iran was a threat to Donald Trump's safety. And that might be true. I think he's more of a threat now that he's destabilized certain things in the Middle East. But the best part of this story is that we covered it at the time, and I'll just bring it up again since you will see this trending across social media if you're on Facebook, if you're on X, and so on. Asif Merchant was the guy's name, Asif Raza Merchant. He was indicted for attempting to commit an act of terrorism, transcending national borders, in a murder-for-hire scheme to assassinate a U.S. politician or government official. Justice Department won't tolerate it. That's Merrick Garland, the last guy. You remember him. Dangerous murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by a Pakistani national. Close ties to Iran, straight out of the Iranian regime playbook. That's Chris Wray. Now, these statements, this could be Todd Blanche, this could be Pam Bondi, because this is the same as it always is. The FBI doing a terrorism case against someone who wants to kill somebody that's an American politician. Yeah, that's a normal thing, isn't it? That's what our system is set up to do. You know what else it's set up to do? Create these things out of whole cloth. Here's the best part. In mid-June, I'm just going to go down to this part, Merchant met with purported hitmen. What is a purported hitman, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. A purported hitman is not a hitman. It's someone who purports to be a hitman. Kind of like a guy who says that we have an infallible blockade, but what he really means is that we have some ships in the area and some things get through that we let through. Kind of like a guy that would say like, oh, we're totally in charge of this thing, even when they're not. He purports to be in charge of it. He's just not actually in charge of it. A purported hitmen who were in fact undercover U.S. law enforcement officers, the UCs, in New York. And then this guy told federal agents or federal deputized law enforcement officers that he was looking for services. He wanted to kill some people. He needed theft of documents. He wanted to arrange protests, and he wanted them to kill a political person. This is called the playbook. If you listen to the Seraphin show, that's not surprising to you. You're like, wait a minute. So the guy who was a terrorist wannabe who was going to hire a hitman didn't actually hire a hitman, had no ability to find an actual hitman, and ended up actually hiring FBI agents or people who are working on behalf of the FBI? Yeah, that's how it works. Could that happen under FBI Director Kash Patel, number 9? It could, for sure. Could it happen under Todd Blanche instead of Merrick Garland? Yeah. Can you do reform with the same people? And the answer is no, you cannot. And we'll get into why that's relevant. It actually means that if you have people on U.S. soil, they tend to be pretty safe. If you had America First agenda and you were working on the things that you said you were going to do in the United States, you're probably okay. If you go hang out in Turkey, then maybe there's dumb shits doing dangerous things out there and you may have to switch your plane and hide. It's a possibility. We can't rule it out. Guys, if you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. Give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe to the channels if you have not done so already. You can support the program by going to kyleseraphin.com and joining up to be part of our locals community. That's where people of like mind share their frustrations and talk about $9 laundry. You know, it's just a thing. You may hear an ad on the audio platforms. We'll inject that right now, so adjust your volume accordingly. And if you want to find audio and video on the audio platforms, maybe you're listening to Apple and you're like, hey, is there a better way? There is. You can go to Spotify. It's kyleseraphinshow.com. Try that app out. I was not a Spotify guy until I started getting hosted by Spotify. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to leave Pandora, I think, and start doing music on Spotify too. I think they're a better option. So there you have it. You can hire a hitman. It just will end up being an FBI agent. Kind of like when you purport to do certain things and you can't. This story came from CBS News. Trump secretly switched different planes in Turkey amid the Iranian missile threat. And the concern was that they were going to have the plane shot down, so they wanted to put him on. They scramble and move him around. That's good. That's good OPSEC. Moving somebody from one plane to another when one is very visible. Kind of doing the shell game. Shortly before Air Force One took off from Turkey at the end of last month's NATO summit, President Trump secretly slipped away from the presidential jet and was whisked to another plane with the help of an airport catering truck, according to the U.S. official with direct knowledge on the matter. Nothing like leaking this information out there. That's good. The ruse was employed. I like a ruse. I like a good ruse. It's a good tactic. Say one thing, mean another thing. You know, maybe that's that Fed time that I had. I enjoy it. I enjoy going up and giving you a plausible explanation while actually doing something else. The ruse was employed because the U.S. had learned of a threat from Iran, and its allied proxies, U.S. intelligence, detected a credible plot to fire a missile at the plane. Interesting. That only works if you're not where you're supposed to be, which is in the United States, solving U.S. problems because you ran on a domestic agenda. That's just my take on it. I would just like to see the president deal with the things he said, not giving $1 billion to Colombia, not writing a bunch of money off to other places, and not getting involved in foreign wars because he said he wasn't going to get involved in foreign wars. Call me crazy. The president expressed awareness of the risk posed by the U.S.-Iran war. Oh, specifically that? Interesting. And then he called himself Iran's #1 target. I wonder why. Was it because you unilaterally decided to go in there and act because you said that the Israelis were going to act and then you had to do it first? Luckily, the Strait of Hormuz is completely shut down and we've renamed a military base. So we're good to go, I think. I think we're fine. Everything should be good, right? If you want a kind of an instinct of how the Iran war is affecting domestic policy and people in election cycles, I haven't seen anybody really reporting on this in the context, but I think this is relevant. So I'm going to point this out to you. And you do with the information what you like. The claim has been that Donald Trump has a really, really good rating inside the Republican Party. That he's, recently he was claiming 100% approval rating by MAGA. In other words, people who approve of Donald Trump 100%. Okay, fine. You have a current incumbent losing a Republican primary in Tennessee in the person of Andy Ogles. And I haven't really heard a lot made of this. A congressman in office, endorsed by Donald Trump. He had the endorsement and he lost. And so there will be another guy, Chris Hatcher, who's going to end up taking the GOP nomination for that seat. And it wasn't a huge difference. It's only about 4,100 votes is what it looks like. But that is relevant. That is a indicator, I would say. At least it's a crack in the armor of Donald Trump recommends you and you get 100% likelihood of moving it. Now, there are some very, very safe districts where that will work. But the primary tells you that if you get Donald Trump's endorsement in a Republican primary and then you don't win your primary, especially in a place like Tennessee, that should make you ask some questions. Was this the result of unseating Thomas Massie? You can do it. It can cost you $30 million. You can make him spend $20 million to try to fight it and make it close. But is there some fallout from that? And do people say, you know what? I voted for the guy that was going to do the deportations. I voted for the guy that was going to stop the invasion. I voted for the guy that was going to tell me that inflation was a problem, which means we weren't going to go get ourselves tied up in a bunch of very expensive wars. I voted for the guy that wanted to make America the dominant energy producer, which I took to mean we were going to have cheaper fuel costs in America and that it wasn't going to cost $5 a gallon for diesel in Texas, where it shouldn't be that. I voted for the guy that was going to be interested in outsourcing and talking about manufacturing in the United States, not trying to manufacture a bunch more weapons, which are going to take years to replenish. And maybe the guy who said he was going to try to de-weaponize the government, fix things like the Bill of Rights, and actually focus in on fundamental freedoms in the United States, as opposed to the guy that was going to go out there and enable a bunch of AI companies and throw their hand in with data centers. Because the so-called socialist types, or the democratic socialists that are running in Wisconsin right now, are talking about data centers, and we don't want them. It's like an anti-corporate thing, very interesting. And that actually hits home for some people when they're like, well, if I'm not going to get the thing that I voted for with the guy who made 20 promises that made sense, like no additional wars, prevent World War III, peace in Europe, that's Ukraine, peace in the Middle East, that would be Iran and Israel and everything else that's going on that's a mess there. If you're going to vote for that guy, if you wanted the guy that was going to stop weaponization of government, that was going to come out with predetermined outcomes, then maybe you were thinking, maybe we'll try something else. Maybe somebody else is going to say a couple of things that we like, and maybe that would be worth it. Maybe I'll reprioritize what I like. No data centers, or the anti-data center movement has got like 70 to 80% of Americans behind it. In the same way that people don't like surveillance states. Luckily, we have CBS and the Free Press out there running and carrying water for that particular organization, Flock and so on. But it's not that popular. That's why you have to do a popularity campaign. Did they not learn anything during the COVID moments? Am I wrong about this? I don't think I am. People said, if it was really great, then you wouldn't have to sell it to me. That's how that works. That's how you end up in a spot where people go, I remember the last time you tried to hard sell me on something. I remember when you were desperate to make me believe the thing that you need me to believe. And the only reason that you would need to be desperate to do that is because it's actually not true. Because if things are really good for you, then you just end up, it's like steak is really tasty. And you go, oh yeah, steak is really tasty. If they go, this tastes just like steak, even though it's not steak. So try this not steak Beyond Beef emergency imagined soy garbage. And you're like, I don't know, man. Show me pictures of it. And they're like, it's just like steak. And you're like, why do I need something that's just like steak when steak already exists? You're selling something that I don't require. COVID gave us this thing. They said, hey, do you have natural immunity? Well, it doesn't count. You need to come and get this poison thing in your arm. And you're like, I'm not into it. I think I'm going to pass. I think I'm going to be okay. And they're like, well, if you think you're going to be okay, you're actually going to die. And you don't even know it. And you're like, crazy. Here I am, not dead. Maybe a little bit of circumspect. And what are we seeing? That's where this sort of like half-ass pivot of the White House goes towards. Donald Trump is going to now weigh in on vaccines. The crazy thing about the vaccine argument was that it was not like, oh, can I get the government to change the schedule of vaccines? Nobody who was in the MAGA Maha sort of faction said that. Nobody did. They were like, can we just get the government to give us better recommendations? They were like, how about you stay the hell out of our business? That was the argument. You've debased your own credibility. We're not interested in your perspective anymore. Leave us the hell alone. That was the COVID argument for those of us that were in it. I say that as someone who has made that argument, who doesn't go to doctors at this point. I'm going to work on just maintaining my own health. I'd rather wait it out on a cold than go see somebody and then have them tell me whether they're going to overprescribe antibiotics, which, by the way, for decades, they were talking about overprescribed medications. The answer was autonomy, liberty, freedom, individual choice. Donald Trump was like, oh, what they really wanted me to do was go out there and make executive orders that have force of nothing. Because at the end of the day, the executive order from the president of the United States has almost no bearing on individual physicians and what they think or what they say to their clientele. And then more importantly, it should have actually no bearing on what human beings who go to said doctor decide. The doctor is the person you're paying for medical advice. It's certainly not the president of the United States. How many people elected Donald Trump thinking he makes great medical decisions? I'm like, he's a chubby something 80-year-old guy. He's a non-athlete with a pot belly. He wears his pants above his navel, slightly below his nipple line. I'm not interested in what that guy has to say about fitness or health at all. He doesn't look all that healthy. He eats garbage. He drinks Diet Coke. Not my guy. RFK Jr., he looks fitter. He also looks like he's cheating, but he looks fitter. So maybe I'd be like, hey, what's your routine? How do you get so studly at that age? Oh, it's just a testosterone supplement? That sounds cool. Maybe I'll do that when I'm your age. Probably not. It's probably not my jam. Okay, now we have two people that don't need to give me medical advice. Meanwhile, are any of them as fit as half of us are that are listening to this? Are they even close? Do we need an executive order? You missed the message here, buddy. But it didn't stop them from making the message happen anyhow. And it's reopened a discussion about, was Anthony Fauci an evil piece of garbage? And a ton of people already believe that. So you didn't need to convince us, but I guess you got to do what you got to do if there's an election coming up and you need to win a narrative.
For long and far too long period of time, America's recommended more childhood vaccines than any peer nation, and even twice as many doses as some European countries, and even more than that. In many cases, we were requiring 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy, lovely, delicate little children, including giving the hepatitis B shot to infants and newborns on top of many other vaccinations. The hepatitis B shouldn't be given until they are 14 or 15 years old. They were given early. Effective immediately, my administration is recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for only 11 core vaccinations against the most serious and dangerous diseases, along with the MMR, which hopefully will be split up. You have the
My favorite thing about Donald Trump reading things is that he reads and then you can tell when he's ad-libbing because, one, he doesn't stare at the paper, and then two, he actually sounds like a human being instead of like bad AI robot. Here's more bad AI robot reading.
MMR, we want it in 3 separate vaccinations given at separate times. Together, there could be a possibility they're quite lethal, and separately, it looks like they are not at all lethal, but just very effective. So the MMR, we want to have separate visits, separate times. The vaccine being broken into 3 separate single doses, and vaccines being administered in separate visits. For example, at 1 year, you should have 5 separate visits for vaccines rather than getting them all in the same day. And I saw this early on, and I've seen proof of it, where they have a vaccination thing, looks like the size of a bottle of soda, poured into a little child's body, and bad things happen in many cases, in too many cases. This is an explosion. This is an epidemic. So at year 1, you should have 5 separate visits for vaccines rather than giving them all in the same day. Very importantly, vaccinations for hepatitis B, COVID-19, and influenza, among others, are no longer recommended for all children. In addition, this executive order directs the Attorney General to advance legal challenges against states that violate children's rights to religious or medical vaccination exemptions for the exemptions.
If you were wondering how we can make these recommendations, it's because I have written it down. As the president, I have declared that there will be these things happening, and we don't want this. We don't want this. We're not the parent of your child, but we want to tell you how to parent your child. Again, when I keep telling you guys that there's no party of small government, is that not more evidence of it? What's the small government version of whatever that was? That was an 80-year-old man with no children getting vaccinations at this point. His kids are grown. Even the youngest one is grown. Like, what are you doing, man? What is the purpose of what just happened there? You're making vaccine recommendations as a non-doctor, as a non-trusted party, and really, who cares? You're making a government statement from the executive Oval Office. What's small government about that? What's liberty-minded about that? Just stay out of it. It really is bizarre to me. Of course, it makes national news. Here's NBC covering it. Donald Trump order aims to cut the number of diseases all children should be vaccinated against from 18 to 11. Isn't that a funny way to cover what he just said? His claim is that there should be, it just gives these people an opportunity to talk about something. But it's like, oh, we should eliminate the number of vaccines that are required up front. Shockingly, all the people that are alive that are in, over the age of 50 that are dominating our national politics and now some of our state politics. How many do they get immunized against? Was it 11? Was it 72? And this is the whole point that RFK Jr. He's like, somehow we managed to live. This is the point of that thing that we played with Steve Friend the other day. It's like somehow we managed to make it through a childhood where we were going off plywood ramps, drinking out of hoses that were like hanging out on the ground, stuff that you probably wouldn't do with your kids today just because you're like, oh, what about Legionnaire's disease? I saw it on Dr. House. All the things that we were worried about. And then things that we didn't have to worry about, we have to worry about now. My wife and I are like, we would like to be able to run things in our garden, but we are adjacent to a large field that is maintained by the county, and the county comes in and sprays for bugs, and it sprays for weeds, and it sprays for God knows what. So what sort of poisons and pesticides are just slipping over the top and through our fence and getting into our garden space? Stuff you don't even know about. And you're like, oh, now I'm growing food with poison on it. Some of these things were not even thought of back then because they weren't so widespread. Government getting involved. President Donald Trump issued that executive order. That was yesterday, aiming to reduce the number of universally recommended vaccines for children, as though that somehow has any bearing on what you do. Again, how about people just should defer to parents to make their own decisions, whatever that is. Similar to the vaccine schedule change, the new order recommends dropping the list of diseases that all children should be vaccinated against from 18 to 11. Other shots would be recommended for high-risk groups or subject to so-called shared clinical decision-making between parents and their children's doctors. Shared clinical decision-making is also a ridiculous idea. There's only one person that has responsibility for the children. Who is that person, you wonder? Oh, the parents who are in charge. The new order recommends vaccines for COVID, rotavirus, the flu, hepatitis A and B, and bacterial meningitis should be administered on a shared clinical decision-making basis. What is that? What is this even a waste of our time for? What is different about it than anything else that goes on? I don't get it. Yeah. There were people making crazy arguments. The message to take away from what happened over the last 5 years was that the establishments lost a ton of trust. The people that Trump put in front of the CDC, the people like RFK Jr., who got involved as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, their entire point was the credibility has been debased. So people have to make their own best decisions. If you need a reminder.
Fox News, Rupert Murdoch's company, night after night, peddles these incredibly dangerous, poisonous lies about the literally life-saving coronavirus vaccine.
We all know already, right, that if you get vaccinated, that vaccine will basically prevent you from getting sick with COVID. It will prevent you from having to go to the hospital with COVID symptoms. It will prevent you from dying from COVID. Great. Good for you.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real world data.
Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person to person, spreading and spreading, sickening some of them, but not all of them. And the ones that it doesn't sicken don't know they have it. And then they give it to even more people because they didn't recognize they were.
If you're vaccinated, you don't have a risk. And that's the reason why we say it's as simple as black and white. You're vaccinated, you're safe. You're unvaccinated, you're at risk. Simple as that.
Right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person, potentially mutating and becoming more virulent and drug resistant along the way.
Viruses don't mutate if they don't replicate. So if you stop the transmission and the replication, you're not going to get any more mutations.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
If you're vaccinated, you really don't need to worry about getting it in a way that's serious or transmitting it.
That is true. That is correct, Chris.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else. It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
The risk is extremely low of getting infected, of getting sick, or of transmitting it to anybody else. Full stop.
Fox News, Rupert Murdoch's company, night after night, peddles these incredibly dangerous, poisonous lies about the literally life-saving coronavirus vaccine.
Now we
literally life-saving. Story coming out of the New York Post. Dr. Anthony Fauci privately warned of miscarriage risk linked to COVID vaccine while publicly claiming no issues. Text messages show. This is a little bit of a misleading headline for whatever it's worth. Fauci wasn't warning about that risk per se. He was being warned of that risk, and those text messages showed that he was being at least made aware of it. A lot of us knew this stuff at the time. This is the funniest part about all this, is that none of this is news to people that were paying attention over the last couple of years. If you've been paying attention, it's very obvious that we were being lied to as on a national scale, that the national news doing those kind of like hype jobs, claiming literally life-saving, even though they had no literal obvious explanation that it was. And I know literally people who died immediately after taking it with no other previous risk happening. So we also had the anecdotal evidence, which was significant. The increases in malformed pregnancies, miscarriages, all kinds of fertility issues, which was something that a lot of us were pointing out right away. Dr. Anthony Fauci privately raised concerns that the COVID-19 vaccine could theoretically be linked to miscarriages to expectant mothers, despite having publicly insisted that there were no red flags for pregnant women. The crazy thing about medical research with pregnant women is that it's almost always considered unethical to try drugs on women who are pregnant. You can imagine why. There's an unformed life. Oh, interesting. So wait, medical ethics recognizes that compromising a pregnancy is an ethical concern. Meanwhile, we have governors signing bills that are basically giving the ability to do an abortion up to the point of birth. This is the reason why when people point out sort of leftist type logic, they're like, look, they're not operating on some ideological principles. They're operating on the idea of progress. They're going to move the agenda, even if the agenda is not in sync with itself. I have these fun conversations. I've had them historically with my father-in-law, who has told me he was a communist, but he used to make his living as a real estate agent. That's very strange to me. Just in and of itself, that's actually the funniest thing that you could ever find out. Someone tells you that they don't believe in private property, but they make a living by selling and renting private property. I'm not kidding. And the other way that he made his living was that he would rent out a piece of his apartment, or the apartment that he had in his house that he owned. Okay. There's a couple of things that we learned during the 23-24 campaign that was really fun. One of them was the idea that you could be unburdened by what had been, what could be. You could imagine what could be without being burdened by what had previously been. I've got an AOC clip later on that is 100%. We are imagining what can be, but we're unburdened by the things that we previously said, because that's really devastating to our argument. The arguments that self-contradict not being a problem for you, the cognitive dissonance being something you can just wave away and ignore, that is a very leftist type attitude. I don't know that there's such a thing on the right that makes that the case. But people on the left can just live in the coexisting world where two diametrically opposed ideas are not in conflict with each other, and they just carry on. So anyway, there's not a lot of research that's done on almost any drug when it comes to how it's going to affect pregnancy. So the only way they find out is they say it's likely to be safe, and then you find out later, it's like, oh, well, we've had some instances, so we're now going to discontinue it, so it's not likely to be safe. But they still don't ever do real studies on this because it's considered to be unethical. Kind of interesting, right? He says, I was asked about a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. He said in January of 2021, text exchange with then Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. Since many people have significant cytokine storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. So they're acknowledging cytokine storm and fever, which are, in this case, he's saying theoretically associated with miscarriage. They're also theoretically associated with the second dose. That seems problematic. A lot of people got very, very sick when they had the shots. In fact, I think even our vice president came out and said that the sickest he'd ever been, that he remembered, was that this all happened. Now, here's the funny thing. This is coming from text messages that are being disclosed. They're being talked about by Senator Ron Johnson, who's been pretty good about maintaining a position on this thing. Fauci was concerned in 21, second dose of COVID could be theoretically associated with miscarriage. Here's the actual text. It's like a screenshot of it kind of deal. There's a couple of other ones. This is from Anthony Fauci. It says, I've asked around a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of since many people significantly blah, blah. Okay, yes, same thing. And then he's also agreeing over here, there's no data or theoretical reason to believe that vaccinating early versus later in pregnancy would be preferred. And yet some people, even female healthcare professionals, feel concerned about injecting a genetic vaccine early in pregnancy. There's this misperception out there that we need to deal with that mRNA somehow could get into your genes. When the misperception extends into early fetal development, the anxiety heightens. Okay. The reason that some of this stuff is interesting to me is because Judicial Watch has been suing for this. This is where we go back to, okay, fine, we got a new administration in, right? I pointed to you that the Merrick Garland press release could just as easily be Bondi or Patel and Blanche. Chris Wray, Kash Patel, Jim Comey, it turns out, could have released these things. We haven't gotten reform because the same organizations still exist. And here's how you know that's true. This is a tweet that I pushed out yesterday. It comes from a lawsuit. I'll show you this in a second here. But it comes from a lawsuit that Judicial Watch has filed in D.C. And they are suing for, let's get to the actual things they're suing for, text messages via FOIA. They're suing for Dr. Anthony Fauci's text messages and emails. Now, most of you have never had to do a FOIA. And if you have, you've experienced this, and then usually you don't go any further because it's expensive to start a lawsuit. I'm in a couple of FOIA lawsuits right now. They cost you $425 or $405, something like that, to be able to file. This story is being covered by Brianna Morello. She hit me up with it yesterday, and we both started laughing about it because it's pretty funny. The key is that they are suing for information from Dr. Fauci. They want all contents obtained from government-issued cell phones of former director of National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, Anthony Fauci, which were reportedly recovered by the FBI as disclosed to podcaster Joe Rogan by Kash Patel in the following interview. Now, here's where it's fun. The following interview, they took an X link of that little segment of the interview from my Twitter feed, from my X post. And there's no reason to do that. They could have simply cited the YouTube link or the Spotify link for Joe Rogan's podcast with a timestamp. Instead, they specifically chose to use my name in this lawsuit, and I will argue to you they did so to provoke and to prod and to point out that Kash Patel is a fraud, but also because my name is likely very triggering to Kash Patel, which is very funny to me. And I actually failed you guys. I'm sorry about this, but I did not. Here, let me blow it up really big just so you can see it. So there's the post. I'm going to pull down the original video, which I failed to do. And I'm going to do that real quickly while we're sitting here talking. And I want you guys to hear what he said. So this is all rematerializing, but for them to be at this point with the lawsuit, that means that Judicial Watch put in the request. It did not materialize. They didn't get what they were asking for. And then after you have the number of days required, I think it's like 30 days that they have to respond to it. Once they don't, then you can file a lawsuit, and then you end up sitting there forever and ever. This is Kash. I'm going to name it properly so I can find it again. Fauci texts. Okay. So when you have to go out there and sue the federal government for things that they should have given you, there's no change in the FOIA process. The things that we've asked the administration for, we're not getting. It just keeps on going the same way it's always been. And this is my ongoing supposition that you can't do reform with the same people. Here is the context. Again, this has nothing to do with me specifically, other than Judicial Watch quoted my tweet, which, by the way, was quoting another tweet from Eric Daughtry. So I didn't even rip the clip from the Joe Rogan show. The only reason that they referenced me is because Judicial Watch follows me, and I think they wanted to put my name in the lawsuit to try to piss him off. Here's what the clip sounded like.
I mean, we just had a great breakthrough this week on Fauci. So Senator Rand Paul, Senator Kennedy, and I hate naming names because I always forget people, are doing a great job with us on COVID origins, and we've got multiple investigations open on that.
You might be wondering, why is he sniffing so much? Nobody knows.
But they had always been looking for Fauci's original phone, or not original, but phones and devices he used while he was Fauci back in Trump 1 during COVID.
Was he not the same Fauci in the whole time?
And nobody had found it till 2 days ago.
Cash loves to trade in secret, exciting, news-breaking knowledge. We just discovered the cell phones. We've got the backpack.
Kamikaze dolphins.
Take your pick.
Really?
Yeah. Now, look, your audience and everybody listening to it shouldn't jump to the conclusion everything's in there.
Not only did we just tell you this awesome thing, but also we want to now temper your expectations because, it's probably bullshit.
We'll look at it. We'll pull it. We'll rip it, as we say. And maybe it's deleted.
Guys, we use terminology like rip it, pull it, tug it, snatch it. What is this guy talking about?
Maybe it's not, but at least we found it. And at least now we can tell the American people we've been looking, because it is of public importance to figure out, did that guy lie? Did he intentionally mislead the world and cause countless deaths? We owe those answers to the American people. And the best evidence ever is always the people's evidence who created it. And so now we're going to go and exploit those hard drives. But I think a victory for the American people that we broke with Congress is that we did find it. We're not done. We're still.
We are talking like we're news people. We did break it to Congress. You broke it to Congress? You mean you turned it over to Congress? You shared it with Congress? You participated in oversight? And you provided information that was requested to Congress? Or did you break it and rip it and pull it? There's some real gay language in this thing. Here's the thing that I said at the time. FBI Director Kash Patel is commenting on an active investigation because it's just a policy that they made up. This is why they can comment on an active investigation when they choose to, apparently. That's the comment that I made at the time, and it didn't get a ton of views. It's not particularly important. It's not even, look, I'll scroll down. It's not even a highly visible post. 18,000 views, a couple of people like it. Any significant activity? Nope. Just me. Just me quoting myself. So the fact that Judicial Watch rolled in there and put this in their website, it continues to tell you that even though every day we're not hurting Kash Patel's feelings, people know if you want to get there in his face, you can just whisper my name and watch him go ballistic. And I may or may not have advised somebody who plays hockey with him that would be a really fun game. And I'm looking forward to hearing what happens when that hockey game happens and he gets stuck up against the boards, just hearing Kyle Seraphin, because that's just funny. Is it trolly? Yeah, it's totally trolly, obviously. It's not particularly serious. All right, let's get into something that I think is the sort of the meat and potatoes of what bothers me in this election cycle. I am tired of people telling me that if the right people were running, then we would be able to, quote unquote, vote our way out of it. And I don't see any evidence that's true. And I didn't even know this was a problem until yesterday. So let's get into something that is maybe a little bit goofy. This is Michael Alfonso at Mike Alfonso, Wisconsin, WI. He's a proud Wisconsinite. I never understood Wisconsinite. I always thought it should be Wisconsonian. Wisconsonian sounds like a thing. Wisconsinite sounds like something that falls out of a cave. All right, he went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. He is a Trump-endorsed candidate running for Congress in Wisconsin's 7th. Now, my dad's from Wisconsin, and we were talking about whether or not having a Trump endorsement in Wisconsin is a particularly useful thing to have. Is that a place where a Trump endorsement goes a long ways? And the answer is, I think it is. Because Wisconsin's 7th is a deep red, solidly Republican district with a +11 or an R+11 rating, according to the Cook Partisan Voting Index. 11 percentage points to the Republican, more than the national average. That's a pretty solid Republican district. Now, what I keep seeing, I don't know why I keep seeing this, but we keep seeing this interesting phenomena where we're not doing true nepotism, which is where your child takes your thing. That's kind of like the OG version. There was a time for nepotism in like the purest form. Lisa Murkowski is a good example of like pure nepotism. Your dad is a congressman or a senator, and he decides to go on to another office, and then he gives you his old office. In the case of Lisa Murkowski, she was put in, where is she? She's in the Senate, is that right? Murkowski, there she is. Yeah, she's a senator. Sometimes I doubt my recall. She was installed by her father, who left his seat, became the governor of Alaska, and then nominated his daughter to it. That's purely, perfectly nepotistic. Now we're doing this sort of like pseudo-nepotism thing. You guys are pointing out Lindsey Graham's sister. That would be joint base Lindsey Graham. Should we just call him that from now on? Joint base Lindsey Graham? This pseudo-nepotism thing has been ongoing, and it's been relatively new, at least in my awareness. I'm going to have to dig into it more and find out if there's more examples of this. Brandon Gill is the most recent example. Oh my God, I got to show you guys this too, just because that is nightmare fuel right there. Lisa Murkowski, 69 years old. Why that's the picture of her, I have no idea. She looks like if somebody put a blonde wig on Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. Oh my God. She should petition to have that taken down. That is very damning. Let's go back to my guy here, Alfonso. Okay, so Brandon Gill was the first time that I saw this, and now I'm seeing another one of these things, and I start wondering, like, oh, how common is this? Is this the new Republican jam? And it's very likely it is. I think what we're doing now is we're going to put the attractive, young, well-spoken husbands of politically connected children. Mike Alfonso is married to Evita. Does she go by Duffy? I gotta see. She goes by Evita Duffy. Does she go by the last name? I think she does. Why can I not find her? Evita. I'm scrolling through her stuff. By the way, we're scrolling through Michael Alfonso for Wisconsin, and it's got Daniel Bongino, who he used to work for. It's got the endorsement by Donald Trump. It's got pictures of Sean Duffy, who is the Secretary of Transportation in the Trump administration, right? Who is this little guy? I mean, I say little guy, he's 26 years old. I'm trying to remember if Evita goes by that name. Why is that not popping up? Here, we'll look it up here. Is it? Yeah, it is. Of course it is. So let's go fully conservative right now. My values are vintage. That's why I hyphenate my last name, because the name Duffy is associated with Sean Duffy, who was on The Real World, his wife, Rachel Campos Duffy, who hyphenates her last name. There's nothing hyphenated about, there's nothing vintage about hyphenating your last name, just for whatever it's worth. That's a feminist move. She took on the husband's last name, but didn't want to lose the prestige of going by Duffy Alfonso. I thought so. I remember seeing this. And nothing against her. She seems like a nice young lady. I'm just saying that's not a vintage value to hyphenate your last name. That's a very modern thing. And it's a modern feminist thing, because it says my family's name is important to hold on to, even though I'm taking on somebody else's name. I got one foot in each lane, basically. I don't want to completely lose connection with my family name. Unlike my wife took on the last name Seraphin. That's it. She's a Seraphin now. Children, Seraphin. So she is the daughter of Sean Duffy and Rachel Campos Duffy, both of whom seem really lovely, by the way. And you can see their family up there. And I seriously, I don't have any problem with the Duffy family. I think they're nice people. What I don't like is seeing people that have no experience, have no reason to be in charge of anything, stepping into a political arena and then having a shoe-in for election because they run into a 11 plus. Brandon Gill did the same thing. Brandon Gill is married to Dinesh D'Souza's daughter. Yes? I think Dinesh D'Souza is a nice man. I have nothing against Brandon Gill as a person. I do hate the idea that you came out of nowhere, and because of name association with not even in this case your father, which is kind of gross too, it's with your father-in-law, And because they have a big media presence, they can push you in a very safe district, and they can put together a machine behind you to get you into office. And so now your media father-in-law has a congressman in the family. In the case of Sean Duffy, you've got a daughter who worked for Daniel Bongino. And here's where it gets kind of confusing for me. Michael Alfonso seems like a nice guy, nice kid. He called me 2 years ago. His mother or father, I can't remember which one. So they have a joint text messaging account that I suppose, I think it's Rachel, texted me and said, my son-in-law is a really good kid. He's interested in law enforcement, and he would love to talk to you about the FBI. And I said, yeah, sure. So while I was driving around in Montana and Idaho, checking out if we were going to make the move, I ended up taking his call. I remember I was in the Flathead Valley when I got the phone call. And so I'm driving around, and I was like, fire away, kiddo. Like, I got nothing but, 5 hours of drive in front of me. Let's talk. And so he said, I really want to serve, and I'm pretty fit and I'm pretty athletic. And so, I think that I can do something. I'd like to be an FBI agent. And I said, I don't think that's a great job. Look who you're calling. You're calling somebody that thinks the FBI should probably be destroyed. But at the very end of it, you're going to be surrounded by people. You're a Catholic guy. We already know what they do to Catholics. This was right on the heels of pointing out that the FBI was investigating Catholics for going to Latin Mass. So if you're a conservative Christian, or if you're a conservative Catholic, and you're telling me, I've seen what you're about, I wanted to talk to you, can you talk me into how to get into the FBI? My answer is going to be don't. Don't. Just like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to Iran. Don't. But seriously, like, who did you think you were calling? So we ended up having maybe a 30-minute conversation, something like that, maybe a little longer. And my point to him was, if you want to do good for your community, this is 2 years ago, guys. If you want to do something good for your community, be a local sheriff's deputy. That'd be fine. Work your way up in local law enforcement. If you want to serve your community, go be a local police officer in a city police department where you live. Do what needs to be done where you're at. If you want to do service, if that's what your interest is, I want to serve and protect, I want to help people because I'm capable, then go do that in a place where you can actually make that difference. Because being a Fed is not it. Despite the fact that I thought it might have been, I can tell you, honestly, it is not the case. There are a very, very small number of federal agents that get to do the thing that you think you were going to do. And so what did he do? I guess he took my advice by not going to the FBI. And then he went to go be a producer for Daniel Bongino's show. And I'm going to pull up his website here to share with you guys. And this is, by the way, my answer is like, this is how you end up with socialists, because people look and they go, we don't need any more of this stuff. Meet Michael Alfonso. He's a hometown America First fighter. He's 26. He's 26. So at 26, I want you guys to consider for yourselves, what sort of things did you know about in the world? How well, other than like maybe one of my friends who had his life figured out at 26, most young men I met were boneheads. Didn't know anything about anything. And worse, this guy is one of those young men. He's not a bad person. I don't think I was a bad person at 26. I maybe wasn't as great a person as I could be, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And this guy didn't know what he wanted to do with his life either. And I know that because 18 months ago, 20 months ago, whatever it was, when he was calling me, he was asking, should I be an FBI agent? And then he became a producer for a year at Daniel Bongino's show. And now he's running for Congress and wants to be one of the 535 people that make decisions for the entire country. From the pine forests of Vilas, is it Vilas County, to the working class city of Wausau, he has deep roots in the 7th District. I really hate it when people say that. He was raised here and steeped in Wisconsin values. Okay, fine. You're 26. You got a long ways to go, buddy. He paid his own way through college. Great. Working 10-hour days building houses, paving roads, and laying concrete. Well, you can only do those when you're not in school. So that was either summer jobs. That was a summer job, if I had to guess. Or maybe he was working weekends. In which case, good for you. Like, all those are admirable qualities. There's nothing wrong with that. He got a bachelor's in math, and then he wanted to be an FBI agent. That didn't make any sense. Married his best friend from high school, Evita Duffy. She seems like a sweet young lady too. And then he went back to construction and concrete. He was working rain or shine in the coldest winters. Okay. A year later, he became the producer of one of the nation's top-rated podcast, The Daniel Bongino Show. Here's where it says. He got married at 22 when he got out. He went to construction, and then after a year, he went to go be Daniel Bongino's producer. So construction, should I become an FBI agent? Nope. I'm going to actually go and be a producer on a podcast where my wife is working and hired on by their media company. Now I'd like to be a congressman. You guys can see the connection, right? If you've gone to school and then you went to work in construction for a year, and then you went to be a podcast producer, which is a complete non sequitur, obviously the next step would be that you should be a congressman and one of the 435 people in the House of Representatives, right? And you should obviously get you should get not just Daniel Bongino's endorsement, but you should get Donald Trump's endorsement. That makes sense. It's a R+11. How's it looking? This is the Prediction Edge website, giving you a amalgamation of some of the betting markets. He's a 93% favored chance to win the primary. Those are the live odds right now. Should we refresh it? It's a 96%. Since this morning, it's gone up 3 percentage points. A guy who under 2 years ago didn't know what he wanted to do with his life now wants to be your congressman if you live in the Wisconsin 7th. And his major qualifications are Donald Trump says he's great, and his father-in-law is the sitting Secretary of Transportation. I don't think this is the lesson that you're supposed to be learning, guys. So I started wondering, I was like, well, where did he come from? whose spot is he taking? Because what about the incumbent there if it's an R+11, right? The incumbent must be leaving. Here's the incumbent. It's Tom Tiffany. He's a proven conservative. He's also 68 years old. I think his supporters look like this woman. They are wearing straw hats with Donald Trump labels hanging off of them. They have aging skin from many years of being alive. And they have the equivalent of like a birthday hat with sparklers, like birthday party sparkler hat. And they're really all in on Make America Great Again. Right? It's hard to see that. He's a lifelong Wisconsinite too. He's just 68 years old. So if your two options are a 26-year-old who doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up, and a man who has lived an entire life, had a 29-year career, and then decided politics might be for me now that everything else in my life is squared away. There needs to be a middle ground there. There has to be something. 26 and 68 are not your two options. So when Democrats start putting out people that make sense a little bit, when they put somebody who's in their late 30s and early 40s, kind of the power range of people who've said, yeah, I've got some life experience, but I'm young enough and bold enough to do something useful. I'm ready to carry on, and I still got skin in the game. I've got children that are young enough to benefit from my policies. I'm not a retiree, and I'm not a child who just got out of college 5 seconds ago. They actually start looking fairly plausible. That's not me endorsing anybody in this. I have got no skin in the game. I don't really care who's the governor of Wisconsin. It affects me zero. But I know I don't want a 26-year-old congressman, and I know I don't want a 70-year-old governor. I know both of those things are 100% true for me. And I think there's probably a lot of people that are a lot like me. They're like, hey, do you want to work for someone who is like Mark Levin? And I'd be like, nah. How about someone that's like yourself? My best bosses have been roughly my own age with similar experiences, with similar backgrounds, with similar value sets. Those have been the best bosses I've ever had, hands down. Sometimes they'll be a little bit older than me because they're in more experienced positions, but they still came from a similar place. We're putting people into office. We're recommending that these people take over. We're leaving a vacant seat. The incumbent is moving on to become the governor. And the 26-year-old is going to fill in. Let me look at this governor's race here, because it's kind of fascinating. Will a Democratic socialist, Francesca Hong, shake up the establishment or help Republicans win Wisconsin? This is a useful question being asked by The Guardian right now. And when I tell you that desperate people make dumb decisions, desperate people are folks that are looking at paying $9 to be able to wash or dry their clothes for each half of the load. That's a pretty desperate scenario. Desperate people are folks that text me and say, I just read something. Making $100,000 a year in 2026 is the equivalent of a solid minimum wage job in 1971. That's how you make desperate decisions. And you think, screw it. How many of these things do I align with on this socialist lady? Because the alternative is a 68-year-old guy who's doing a reverse hold mortgage and taking his equity out and living the dream. And the alternative to him is a 26-year-old kid who just got out of college and used to be a podcast producer that also laid gravel for a couple of summers in college. This woman at least sounds like she's got some experience in life. Not an endorsement. I wouldn't vote for her. But this is crazy. She's a grassroots campaign and made her a front runner. She aims to win the primary after public skepticism. What is the background on this lady? I went and read some of the stuff on her because it was kind of interesting to me. I was like, how do you go? First of all, Francesca Hung does not sound like the name of somebody that would be the governor of Wisconsin to me. Tom Tiffany actually does, for whatever it's worth. But Francesca Hung is an American politician. She was in state assembly, a former chef, and a business owner. Interesting, right? She's a member of the Democratic Party, and she's part of the Democratic Socialists of America, which is that fringe part that is taking a lot of the energy, and it's moving things progressively left for the Democrats. She's running in an urban area. I'm sorry, she was representing an urban area. She's obviously running for the state now, but urban areas are what move states. She's the first Asian American, big on firsts, so that's super exciting. She's divorced. She's a single mom. She's checking all the outstanding boxes that you'd want to check. That's super important. She's Korean, as you can probably tell from her name. She went to public schools. She played soccer. She studied Spanish and journalism, hoping to become a sports journalist, and then began working in a kitchen, became a dishwasher, then a line cook, then a sous chef. You can read their little story here. She eventually became the executive chef of an American bistro in Madison. It closed down in 2016. The funniest thing is, when I read her story, it should be the story that leads you to being a hard right-wing conservative. For me, that's where I would come from it. She opened a business in 2016 with her then husband, a guy named Matt Morris. They opened Morris Ramen. That restaurant closed in 2024. And I was really curious, okay, you've opened a business. That's hard to do. The restaurant business is famously difficult. You find all kinds of things that are problematic when you work in the restaurant business. You find out that the government is deeply involved in your business. They can walk in at any time. They can do inspections and so on. There's a very highly regulated. The margins are not nearly high enough. The workforce is actually usually unskilled. So you're working a pretty aggressive series of challenges all at once. Being in the restaurant business is hard, and I know that for a fact. I went to the story about when their restaurant closed. I don't know what this is captimes.com, but this was the reference that they used in the Wikipedia page. Morris Ramen on King Street is going to close on February 24th in 2024. It's a beloved ramen shop on King Street. It announced that it will close. Some of the quotes in here are actually fantastic, and they basically got the same information that many of us would get, and they went the exact opposite direction with it. It's been the most difficult decision we've ever had to make, and one we do not take lightly. We're both terrified and heartbroken to say goodbye, the owners posted on Instagram. Francesca Hong, now a Wisconsin state representative, and husband Matt Morris opened Morris with a restaurateur named Shinji Muramoto. So you got to love that. Matt Morris sounds like a white guy name, married to a Korean woman, and they opened a Japanese ramen shop. What's more American and what's more Wisconsin than that? That's actually great. They worked at the Morato restaurant, and then Hung was the executive chef at 43 North, and then they got together and they launched this ramen shop after several months in Japan, where he learned how to make a signature ramen called Morris Ramen. Fine. Okay, so they opened it in 2016. They did all kinds of different work. They worked behind the counter. They probably put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. Like every restaurant that you launch as a husband and wife team, they probably worked the hell out of it. They struggled because COVID. Oh, that thing that radicalized us that we spent the first half of the show talking about, that Republicans are trying to capitalize on, was the thing that actually killed their business, it sounds like. They went on a fundraising tour and tried to raise money in the summer of 2022 because they lost the ability to serve food indoors. Right? That should radicalize you against your government, in theory. Most people would be like, oh, the way that we operated under COVID, if you're a business owner, should have made you realize the government will destroy your business. And instead, this woman got a job in government, and now she wants to have a more powerful job in government. That's kind of an incredible jump. And she wants to do it not just as a Democrat, but on the hard left side of the Democrat Party. Isn't it interesting that certain people will get the same exact series of information, and some of you will become radical anarcho-capitalist types because you're like, the government got involved in my business. They killed my passion project, which, by the way, she says that. Some of the words they say here are amazing. We chose to prioritize our employees and ensure that their wages remain consistent during the pandemic. I think that's very honorable and admirable. We did so at a loss, and inflation and rising overhead has made it impossible for us to set aside any money beyond our normal operating costs. All of this tells you that, well, inflation is not controlled by you. That's controlled by bad government policy almost always, and bad monetary policy. Rising overhead, that's the inevitable nature of it. The pandemic and shutting things down that took place, and the artificial shutting of businesses, that was governmental decisions. They switched from table service to counter service. They developed a way to be a takeout. They adapted. They tried to overcome. They did all the things that you would do as a business to try to stay ahead. A lot of different businesses did this, especially in the food service industry. She pursued a public service role, and she also volunteered for initiatives like Cook It Forward and Culinary Ladies Collective. All these things are very, they're charitable. I would say they are Christian mentalities. A lot of the sort of feeding the homeless and the poor. It's a very Christian thing to do. She said, please know that because our teams have lived their vision of nourishing souls and providing community one bowl of noodles at a time, our amazing team, past and present, you're all magnificent. We're so proud of you. We love you forever. You know, we're forever thankful for your love and dedication, blah, blah, blah. And they have to shut down. And the answer is socialism. Wait, we just needed more government intervention, which killed our business. The last line here that they put on Instagram is amazing. To be real, dreams die. Usually under socialism, it turns out, as do people, for whatever it's worth. Quote, we've come to terms with this as it has been extraordinarily taxing couple years. You just said that it's been an extraordinarily taxing couple of years, and your answer is we need more government, and we should be running as democratic socialists. That, to me, is absolutely incredible. It is truly an amazing statement. And yet, when your alternative is a 68-year-old guy who worked at a dam, who then got into Congress and then wants to bequeath his seat to a 26-year-old guy who's like a Nepo in law, maybe that's a better choice for certain people. They're like, oh, that looks like corruption. I'm not sure that a 26-year-old is the right answer. I'm not sure this 68-year-old guy can represent me. He's already lived his life. This lady's 37. She's right in it. She's got kids. She's divorced. She's like me, I suppose. Again, this goes back to our comments made yesterday. The next battle over ideology is whether or not they're going to go hard left or whether they're going to go and try to sit in the middle and try to figure out if some guy who's 68 years old represents what they want. And maybe Wisconsin stays kind of milquetoasty, kind of generic-y, and they take a guy named Tom Tiffany. That sounds like a governor that would be in Wisconsin for whatever it's worth. But the fact that they're having this discussion about whether a Korean who married a white guy that opened a Japanese restaurant that failed under COVID, there's kind of some like incredible American dream story there. And then it went all the way hard to the left. That was her answer. The government shut down and killed our dream. So what we need is more government. That's what I take that to be. That only exists in a place where people are making absolutely desperate decisions. And they're looking and saying, well, you failed me. You're giving $1 billion to Colombia. You are starting wars that you said you weren't going to do. You're not deporting the people that needed to be deported. You're not focusing on the domestic agenda. You're telling us how our doctors are supposed to operate when your job was to do more liberty and get the hell out of the business of telling people anything. Maybe we'll try a socialist who hates data centers. Maybe we do a change and see what happens. And that's where people end up. They end up looking at this. Will Wisconsin pick a Democrat socialist for governor? Is literally the line here. When the current Democrat decided not to seek a third term, it paves the way for the party's most chaotic primary of the year. She surged forward. Moderates flailed. They couldn't rally around an alternative that was moderate. And people embraced desperate times, desperate measures, dumb things. They said, hey, let's do something wild. So we'll see. I think Wisconsin's going to be interesting to watch only because of this. Because it's the exact opposite of what I would have ended up with. It's the exact opposite answer from the same data set. What I often find is that people make terrible decisions, and they make worse decisions when they're desperate, when they're in a bad spot. You guys tell me. Put a comment below. Maybe think about the most desperate decision you made when you were under duress. A lot of you have been responding to me with your COVID crisis stories about why you did or didn't choose a shot. By the way, you don't owe me that. I don't need it. But I'm happy to receive it. Like if you want to write something to me, I'll read it. I don't mind. Everybody gets to figure out who they are when they're put to a decision for all their chips. That's almost across the board. When something difficult happens, you get to find out what you're all about. This is why that expression, it runs around on social media on a regular basis. Who people were during COVID, which is even, by the way, I hate the expression during COVID. There's just no other way to talk about it. During the time when there were insanity and lockdowns and racial protests and obvious hypocrisy from left and from right, when there was weakness from the people that said that they were going to protect liberties, when there was strength by the people that said they wanted to come out there and demand that you do what they said and they didn't give a shit about your freedom, those people, the person that you were during that time is who you are. That's what happens when we peel back all the niceties. And what you're going to find out is that a lot of people make very desperate decisions that they would hate later on. That if they had the benefit of forethought and time and no consequence, then they would come up with a different answer than they did. But what we find out is the answer that they came up with, you can't take it back. You can adapt, you can change, but who people were, that oftentimes does not change all that much. That's why we love a conversion story, but there has to be a conversion moment. This is why a Tulsi Gabbard saying, oh, I was into big government and then big government spied on me. And so I am not into that thing because that's scary as hell. I go, all right, that's plausible. That's believable. Tulsi Gabbard's story was believable based on the reason she gave for conversion. But if your version was the government came in and crushed my business, and my answer is what we really needed was more government with the right ideas, I think you're a freaking crazy person. But desperate people choose that kind of stuff. So I do think that's what we're going to end up seeing. Even if it doesn't happen in Wisconsin, more of that. As economic failures happen at home, people will look for an alternative. And you can already see this when it comes to polling. Republicans, for the first time in a decade, are not leading Democrats nationally when it comes to talking about the economy. And you can go to stuff like this, where this piece that we showed you from Reuters the other day, when less people have skin in the game in the capital market, when 50% of the bottom percentage of earners only own 1% of wealth, and the majority of wealth is held by the top 10% of Americans. When the wealthiest 1% have 50%, and another 30%, 37% is held by the other 9% in the top 10. When your average person representing, 90% of the population has only 12% of the wealth, you end up seeing people make pitches for communism, and people go, well, if the game's unfair, screw it. Let's take from the rich. This is how we got the 16th Amendment, where we ended up with income taxes. By the way, none of this ends up in a good situation. It never ends up better at the end. It just ends up with a demand for more communism, more socialism, more taking from the wealthy. And it turns out there's a lot of really, really wealthy people that are 100% behind this kind of idea because their stuff is sheltered. They're going to end up safe. It just leads in a dismal spiral for the few that think they're going to get something better. And then they get disillusioned, and sometimes there's revolt and violence and whatever the digital equivalent of a guillotine. That's my guess. Guys, if you're watching over on Rumble and YouTube, give us a like. Just letting you know now, adjust your audio. You may hear an ad on the audio platforms, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. You can hear that right now. We'll leave a spot. I haven't been watching what the chat has been doing. Have you guys been getting wild this morning? I did see some people say they lost a restaurant. That's rough. People like the idea of a Nepo in-law. We're doing it, whether you like it or not. Nepo in-law is a real concept that is really going to play. And all this stuff comes out, and all these opportunities exist for people to go that direction because of things like this. Again, when the White House is messaging that we're going to fix the vaccine schedule, And I don't know what the White House's job is. And then you've got the guy who's in charge of NIH telling you, I trust the science on childhood vaccines, and that we need to look into that. The people we wanted were the ones that were going to resist narrative lies, obvious lies. That's what we were looking for. I thought that was the Make America Healthy Again agenda, was stop pushing some lying agenda on us. Give us an opportunity to have freedom to make our own decisions. Socialism, by the way, is the wrong answer on that. For those of you in Wisconsin that are wondering, if you're thinking like, oh, well, why isn't more government the answer? The answer is that people should have run their business during COVID the way that they wanted to. And if people wanted to show up and work, then they should have been able to do that because you're a grown-up. Because theoretically, at 22 years old, you get to make your own decision. You can go work for Daniel Bongino. You can become an FBI agent. Or you can run for Congress because your father-in-law is the Secretary of Transportation. You can do whatever you want. We used to have this joke. My buddy would say this when we were 18 years old. My buddy's dad would say, "You're free white and 21." And we're like, some of us are not white and none of us are 21. And he was like, "You know what I mean, boys?" And it's like, okay, sir. But honestly, at some point, after 21, you get to make your own decisions in this country, theoretically. This is the National Institute of Health director. He was the acting CDC director. He was being queried by CBS. The news media took a side, which is the other thing that we all learned. When the news media took a side, they did it during COVID. They continue to do it. They're all still like in defensive mode, trying to hold on to the mainstream narratives. I thought this is what the Trump election was about, was screw the mainstream, screw the narrative, open up more freedom, allow more discussion. Dissent should be tolerated. And Donald Trump has done the opposite of that. Anyway, this is just a reminder of how ugly the other side can be. I don't argue for leftism. This is what leftism looks like at CBS.
You were down in Atlanta this past week. This is 1 year since that horrific shooting at CDC headquarters. Officer David Rose was honored this past week. He was killed last year protecting CDC employees from a gunman. And we should note he was a combat veteran, a United States Marine who had just graduated 5 months prior from the police academy. 3 kids left behind. The shooter was motivated by misinformation about the COVID vaccine.
That's a hell of a claim.
That is why he shot over 100 bullets into the windows of the CDC. Is enough being done to counter this kind of misinformation?
The left loves to get mad at people for victim blaming, except when they want to victim blame.
I should start with, I got to talk with Officer Rose's wife a few months back. Well, one of the first things I did is to honor him and his sacrifice in protecting the people that work at the CDC, the amazing people who work at the CDC, was we renamed the street that leads into the CDC after him, and it was a really nice event. I'll tell you, the thing is, I want to focus my attention on Officer Rose because I think the shooter did was horrific, and I think you can talk about why shooters do things, but really fundamentally.
Well, his father said he was brainwashed about the COVID vaccine and thought it was making him suicidal.
Yeah, so his father said that he was mentally ill. He was brainwashed about something, and so that's your fault. That's your fault, doctor. Can you take ownership of this crazy person that you never met for hearing things that have nothing to do with you? Why won't you take ownership of misinformation? You're a bad person, and we've already told you that you're a bad person. You're here to hear that I am a lady on TV letting you know you're a bad person. See, this is the other end of it. It's like, you can't argue with these people.
Margaret, the thing is, it's like to talk about the shooter puts the emphasis on somebody who's, I think we shouldn't be putting our emphasis on.
No, I am on misinformation about
I think the key.
She just told you what, she's like, my agenda here is to say that you did misinformation, and that misinformation is now guilty of killing somebody. Okay, Margaret.
The key thing is there's a loss of public trust in public health.
This is actually the key thing. That's why I wanted this clip.
That happened in part because of a lot of, frankly, even on this network and on other networks, there was a particular single point of view put across during the COVID pandemic about how, that led to things that really did cause harm to people.
This is going to trigger the living hell out of this woman. She cannot handle this thing. Obviously, she's not going to be able to take that laying down. So let's start the argument.
The school closures is probably the number one thing.
This is not a productive line of claims. We covered COVID in depth on this program like no other Sunday show did.
Argument to authority. We have told you what the truth is, and we covered COVID in depth. He's like, school closures were a problem. She was like, listen, this is not productive because I am not here to do that.
I'm not blaming you specifically. What I'm saying is
You should blame her specifically.
You want to talk about misinformation. The kinds of decisions and sort of the public sort of face of public health during the pandemic led to many people losing trust in public health.
The Trump administration officials.
No, I mean like Biden. So Biden, for instance,
The
censored
pandemic
me.
began under the Trump administration.
Do you see why we're not going to have any sort of meaningful discussion on mainstream media? One of the things that was debunked as a potential institution where you could go and get honest information was mainstream media. Mainstream media's credibility has dropped like a stone. And a huge chunk of it is because they took a narrative, they marched around with it, they celebrated something, and they acted completely illogical about Donald Trump. Can we not be honest about Donald Trump? Sometimes he does things that are okay. He says things that are funny. He seems personable to people that like him. He's not my cup of tea. But I understand where some things where I'm like, you have to give it to the guy. That's funny. That's a good troll. That was clever. This is a good move. I'm glad he did this thing. Like, he's not a person that's out there operating like a Bond villain where literally everything they do is evil and bad. And when you have no nuance, you have no subtlety, when you have no gray zone to be able to go like, okay, well, this is good. This is bad. Balls, strikes. There are two different types of pitches. If every single thing is you're like ball, and everyone's walking and you're just walking the team around to score, I know you're not honest. Unless the pitcher's that bad. And he's not that bad. Donald Trump does some things quite well. It seems like he was doing a great job for 6 months and we were pretty excited about it. Me, Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, take your pick. People that don't even get along with each other listen to what we were saying and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. And then you get today and you're like, there's nothing but knob slobbery, false and false garbage information, fake wins, and propaganda. And the mainstream media is not doing any assistance to their own failing credibility because they can't even see how crazy they sound. Meanwhile, I'll give it to him. When the guy does something right, I want to call it right. I'm happy that he shut down the border. That was step one. If he started deporting people, even if they didn't get to 20 million, because they're not going to get to 20 million, but if they started just doing mass crazy roundups of people and sending them out, and they're like, hey, they may have pending things, they can Zoom call that stuff in and see if it works out. They're out of here. We're not going to wait for some low-level federal judge to make a decision. We're out of here. Gone. Go wait in another country where you belong. What if that happened? I'd give him credit where it was due, because I don't have to be mad about something. I want to be excited about the things that were supposed to be done. What they can do instantaneously in this country is name a military base after Lindsey Graham and put up a wall with his name on it. They can do that in a heartbeat. They can do that before his body even has the grass settling in where they buried him. The first round of flowers haven't even died on his tombstone yet, on his gravesite. And they've already got a wall named after him in a military base. So don't tell me you can't get stuff done when you want to get something done. But when it comes, and you can write an executive order all day long. What you can't do is actions, which were on the list of things that we were evaluating against, which you created. That's what's troubling to me. And the ongoing information of like leaking out about Anthony Fauci did bad stuff. Again, that Joe Rogan interview with Kash Patel, that came back from the beginning of Kash Patel's term. That was within the first month and a half. That was when he was lying about whether or not he thought Jeffrey Epstein killed himself before he got into office. And he was out there trying to cool guy it. I'm not gonna leave you guys completely without some other funny things that he did, because he just went out there and did a fluff job. If you ever wonder why I don't take any news from the Epoch Times, this is why there are some sites that are more credible than others. A lot of you guys loved these sites, Gateway Pundit, Epoch Times. They said what you wanted to hear. They're not news in the same way that MS Now is not generally news. MS Now oftentimes is just telling people what they want to hear. That Face the Nation, that Margaret Brennan, whatever her name is, she's doing not news. She's doing commentary, masquerading as news. I do commentary here. It's like there's news stories. I just have comments on them. Epoch Times is one of the worst. And I had somebody trying to have me sit down with them when I was in Las Vegas. I was like, why would I waste my time? Why would I waste my time with these people that are putting out deliberate slop? I've got two examples of fun slop since it triggers Kash Patel to have my name in a lawsuit. At least Judicial Watch thinks so. We're going to end up with that as kind of our moment. First one, I think, is going to be about World Cup. We're still talking about that. Listen, if you got nothing new to talk about, go back to the well and draw it up and play it. So here we go.
We basically had 78 Super Bowls in 39 days across 11 different venues across the United States of America. We had 6.8 million people visit and attend the games during that time span. On top of that, we had all the teams at different base camp locations where they lived for the duration of their time at the World Cup. We had all the fan zones. We had all the pop-up zones across the country. So it was really the largest sporting event the world has ever seen. It was double FIFA's prior World Cup record. So what law enforcement had to do was meet the demands of the modern times. And the Bureau had to upgrade its spaces and our capabilities. So DSIC, our Director of Strategic Information Center,
it used to be called SIOC, but he changed the name of it. So now it's called the Director of Strategic, because everything's about COVID. Sorry, I mean, it's all about Kash Patel.
This is a part of it, but this specific space was used during the World Cup to share classified intelligence with our classified interagency partners along the IC and also.
What in the world? We're sharing classified intelligence with our classified partners. This guy is such a dumb shit. And when he speaks, everybody in the FBI that's been working there for more than a few minutes cringes, just so you know. I sent this stuff about the China partnership he did to people that were working Chinese CI, and they were disgusted, absolutely disgusted.
Our Five Eyes partners to make sure we were getting threat reporting in from overseas, and what we were getting, we were sharing back out with them.
Somebody should have asked him, like, how much did you share with Israel, just for fun?
And it all happened right here, staffed by people from across the IC in this room.
You are now in the room with the classified intelligence, where the classified agency partners were involved in classifieds.
And so, but there were some incidents that you managed to thwart along the way, and you're open to talking about any of them?
This is Jan Jelic, or whatever his name is, from Epoch Times. He's a nice enough guy in person too. It's funny. There's a lot of people that I think are nice people. I just think they're fake, and I think they're doing like lying garbage. So if your thing is that you're on a network or creating a podcast that used to have Cash's Corner, and now your old buddy who was part of your company comes back to talk to you, and he's in an official government position, and you can't ask him hard questions. You're throwing softballs up like, how great are you? And how many people did you protect? And is it the most that anyone's ever protected? Isn't it amazing to be the person that you are? How come he can't go on Margaret Brennan? I think that would be really fun. I want to watch Cash being angry and stupid and a woman who I already don't like. I want to see two people I don't like fight each other. I don't want to see people that are just going to sit there and schlob each other.
Absolutely. So, as you said, I think the biggest accomplishment for the FBI when it comes to the World Cup is we had zero major security incidents.
Thank you for setting me up for my talking point of zero major incidents. Did you have any minor incidents? We don't talk about those things. We just talk about majors.
For these 78 Super Bowls in some 38 days.
Now, granted, there were no actual Super Bowls because we were playing a different sport, and it actually isn't the size of the Super Bowl, but this is the equivalent of a Super Bowl because that's what we've declared it to be. Our talking point and our focus group studied reference was that people know what the Super Bowl is, and nobody in America gives a shit about the FIFA World Cup. That's why only 6 million people were there when 15 plus million people go to college football games, which is not the Super Bowl.
One of the biggest threats we had to prepare for at the FBI was drone mitigation. And
now, we didn't find any drones with any actual threats, but you can imagine if we did, that we would have been ready for them.
Counter UAS systems. And the federal government did not have a capability to work with our state and local partners, because nothing we do at the FBI, especially with the World Cup, could happen without our state and local partner law enforcement.
The federal government didn't have the ability to communicate with the state and local partners. Everything we do at the FBI has to do with our state and local partners. We are part of the federal government, which means that the federal government actually did have a mechanism to communicate with the state and local partners, also known as the FBI, which is part of the government. I've just made a completely illogical argument, and I didn't even know that it was dumb. I might as well be like Kyle's father-in-law saying silly stuff about communism and property management.
Relationships, and they just don't have the capability in 38 days. One of the biggest threats we had to prepare for at the FBI was drone mitigation and counter UAS systems. And the federal government did not have a capability to work with our state and local partners.
Okay, the government didn't have the capability.
Nothing we do at the FBI, especially with the World Cup, could happen without our state and local partner law enforcement relationships. And they just don't have the capabilities on counter UAS systems. So what we did, we set up the first ever counter UAS school
at our Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama.
Nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever had this expertise. So we created the expertise and then we taught it. And we called it, you guys are going to love this, Trump University, Trump Drone University.
And we trained state and locals over 2-week periods and cycled them through from around the country until we ran into the World Cup.
We gave out so many certificates saying you've graduated from the first ever thing that we created that was not a thing, but we made it. And we became experts in the thing that we created, that we devised. And then we saved the Super Bowl.
And we utilized that experience, and the FBI had our what we call ground intercept teams, GIT teams, at every venue.
Guys, it was called a GIT team, ground intercept teams. And we were like, get it, that drone, get it. And then people would go get it. They would ground intercept team it.
The country to deploy the capabilities that we have, the tech that we have, along with our state and local partners.
How many times did he say the word capabilities in that interview? I counted 7. You guys are welcome to rewind it and find out how many. All right, I'm not quite done yet. Again, we're going to continue triggering. Listen, if we're going to put the guy that we thought was going to solve the problem, which, by the way, I was guilty of that. I thought he was going to go do it. If we're going to put him in, we're going to have executive orders fixing problems that should be government stays out of it, but instead it's going to inject itself in. If we're going to put 68-year-old governors into spots when they've already lived their whole life and retired, and we're going to put 26-year-olds into safe congressional seats just because they're related to somebody and they have no life experience, you think you're not going to see democratic socialists make wins in places that wouldn't otherwise make sense? When people are desperate and they see stupidity from the people that they thought were going to do something, they end up making bad choices, or they make a different choice. They're like, screw it. I didn't get what we thought we were going to get. Maybe we'll try some other dumb stuff. That's not what I do, but it is what a lot of people do. Let me get one more. You probably didn't realize this, but the FBI actually just recently created, invented, developed, and deployed text messages and emails. No one's ever done this before. It's actually incredible. They brought email technology into law enforcement. I'm being serious.
When I got here, the time from a critical incident or an event occurring in the field to getting leadership information, not just here, but to the White House and their agency, was up to 3 hours. And we had our team come in here and rebuild that. We said that doesn't meet the modern day threat dynamic.
They were like, listen, these telegraph services are bullshit, okay? This doesn't meet the modern threat capabilities and dynamics. This is on American thought leaders, by the way. If this is American thought leaders, we are effed. We are straight effed.
And now we're down to less than 60 seconds.
Less than 60 seconds, we can send a message all the way across to whoever we need to in verbal format. Do you understand this? We can send pictures. We can send emails. We can send a phone call. We can dial up a phone and we can talk to people. All right. That never existed before. The federal government never had the ability to also interface with local partners, but we were interfacing with local partners. So we were like, hey, we're the federal government. Let's interface with local partners. Let's do it.
We are delivering in live.
Look at that face. He's like, wait, did you just effing say you invented emails and text messages? I don't understand. Do you think the audience is completely retarded, or is he going to fluff him?
Time.
Tell me again what went from 3 hours to 60 seconds?
The telegraph service. It used to be done by Pony Express, but what happened is 2 guys would tap out a message to one railroad station, but there wasn't wire laid between the other one. So then somebody would ride for an hour in one direction with the message. Then he would hand it to another telegraph guy, and he would type it, and he would give it to another station that also wasn't connected to the other place. And then he would ride for 15 minutes. And after all of it was all put together, it got to Washington, D.C., but it was about 3 hours.
Our ability to share information as it comes in. There's a shooting in Texas. There's a bank robbery in Ohio. There's a mass casualty event out in California, or there's a wildfire or what have you. And the leadership, not just me, but most importantly, the White House.
We're drunk. We're busy. We're hammered. We don't even know what's going on. We're just chilling in the office, drinking booze, and we're like, hey, computers, what are those? We need secretaries that can keep an eye on what's going on X and other social media. We need people that are watching the wire reports. We need people that are answering their phones. Okay, that's not going to be me. I'm in a hot tub. I'm busy. I'm treating myself. So you understand. We needed to create a capability so that someone could run into the room and tell me, I'm in my boxer shorts. I don't even have pants on. Okay? You understand?
And the president needs lifetime leadership, at least when it's in my remit of law enforcement, to say.
He needs lifetime leadership when it's in my Hold on, what? We got to do that one more time.
In Texas, there's a bank robbery in Ohio.
Right.
There's a mass casualty event out in California, or there's a wildfire or what have you.
Okay, we have some situation, and you've given 6 examples, very few of which have anything to do with a national priority. But all right, let's go.
And the leadership, not just me, but most importantly, the White House,
The leadership of the FBI, not the FBI director, but the White House, which is actually running the FBI, that seems problematic. I thought they delegated that to you, genius. Okay, no, keep going.
And the president needs lifetime leadership, at least when it's in.
What is lifetime leadership? Open question. Anybody can respond. Feel free to put a comment below. What is lifetime leadership? I've heard him say it twice. I don't know what that means.
My remit of law enforcement to say this is the information. And the president needs lifetime leadership, at least when it's in my remit of law enforcement. To
what does my remit of law enforcement mean? Guys, help me.
Say, this is the information we have. And what it does is accelerates our ability to deploy our assets.
Oh, it's asset deployment acceleration. I thought so. Does this have something to do with the core superdrive functionality of the CPI index?
Things like our hostage rescue teams, which we didn't even get to talk about, and we'll do it at another time. But
here's the thing. The hostage rescue teams, they're all based at Quantico, Virginia. And the best thing about the Quantico, Virginia people is that they are not able to respond to things. Even though I gave him an opportunity to try to fix that, he could deploy them in the different time zones. And then they would actually be deployable to the rest of the country. But as it stands, it's like, they have a service level agreement of like 4 hours. They can be on site somewhere in 4 hours. So the hostage situation is over, or everyone's dead.
Deploying at a rate that we've never deployed before and rescuing hostages across the country.
Why are there hostages across the country? You just made that up. That's not real. There's literally not hostages across the country that they're rescuing.
We're allowed to do that because we're able to get them the information they need to launch in their fixed-wing aircraft and go across the country. Same with.
It's really cool to call it fixed-wing aircraft instead of just calling it a plane. It's a plane, guys. It's a plane, but it's also called a fixed-wing aircraft, not to be confused with the rotary wing aircraft.
Our evidence response techs. We have the expertise in collecting evidence, which we work with our state and local partners. We can't do that if it takes 3 hours to get us the information that something happened and what the need is. Now we're down to inside 60 seconds.
They're gone in 60 seconds. This is incredible. They should do an AI video about it.
And we're launching those folks on standby in 30 minutes or less. And that's what the American people expect of this FBI, and that's what this place has done for law enforcement.
Guys, can you tell me what your expectations are of the hostage rescue capabilities of the FBI? When you think about the FBI hostage rescue, do you think 30 minutes or less, or we're going to get that pizza for free? Is that what you think? Or do you not have any opinion of that whatsoever? Can you tell me about what sort of things are in your remit as a law enforcement expectation person? And what do you think about the Phony Express? Is it PHONY Phony Express? Was that the problem, that it was taking 3 hours? Or is it that the FBI actually doesn't have a mission that has anything to do with anything most of the time? Because it's a federal law enforcement agency that's supposed to be doing long-term investigations. They're not supposed to be a freaking national security apparatus that deploys to things. That's why you have cops. Oh, yeah. Remember those guys? Some of those people are violating your liberties. Some of them are checking you out on a flock camera. Some of them are doing things like keeping Americans safe. It's a mixed bag. We're supposed to decentralize that. I thought we were voting for smaller government and closer to the persons, and I thought we're not doing the conservative thing. We're just doing whatever this bullshit is. Okay. The alternative is AOC, who froze her eggs. We'll wrap it up with this thought. Some of you guys are forgetting how fun it was to hear what AOC had to say about stuff. Some of you are forgetting. And you're forgetting that they can be imagining what will be, and they're completely unburdened by what has been. This is AOC being unburdened by what has been. Listen, the things that she said back then, that was woke 1. We're on woke 2.0 right now, or whatever the heck it is. So luckily she's got friendly journalists that are super into being kind and loving and laughing. And they're hoping for a hug at the end of it, maybe. Friend hug?
I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke 1 was crazy.
Woke 1 was crazy.
Oh God, it's so cute.
Okay, that's
and I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it. I mean, did the movement go too
now.
far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think.
And what you said was that the government came in and took people's jobs. And so what needed to happen was the government needed to come in and run things so they could make more jobs. Got it.
That the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy.
Guys, when you open the Overton window large enough, it becomes open doors. Did you know that? Did you know that if you open up the Overton window, it becomes a door? Just like all those opportunities, when the window shuts, then it becomes a door. You can open a door.
That was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible.
No. Crime rates are measurements. What we want are less crimes. Crime rates, measurements, you can get crime rates down. You just don't investigate things. You just don't actually monitor them or rate them or put them into a spreadsheet. And you got low crime rates. They did that in Los Angeles. They did it in Washington, D.C. We've proven this over and over again. Nationally, crime rates are a measure. They are a statistic. People who are victims of crime just want less crime. You're conflating things. Kind of like your window door thing.
I think that, you know,
I just don't do that. Just stop. I don't know who told you should do that, but don't.
During lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And
we wanted everyone locked down so we could say wild and crazy shit. And now that we don't have everyone locked down, obviously we wouldn't say wild and crazy shit, okay? We're unburdened by what was previously done. And we now can imagine all of these nonsensical things.
I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to.
The question was, did woke one go too far? And her answer is, we wouldn't do some of these things. And obviously, I'm very grateful for the opportunity for some of these candidates to present who they are. Do you even know what the question is at the point like we're at right now? I'm just curious because I love these answers. They're my favorite.
Their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
And that's how we can talk about the meaningfulness of the passage of time. It really is very funny to me to listen to these people. Listening to Kamala Harris was one of the great joys in 23 when she was campaigning for Joe Biden. And then when she got on her own on 24, it was like, yeah, do more of the drunken wine aunt. Play more of the goofy person. The funny thing is that if you got the opportunity to choose a 26-year-old who doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up, or a 68-year-old who hopes to be something new now that he's already grown up and already lived his whole life, then maybe you go, I don't know, man. How about a bimbo that's in her 30s? What do you guys think? You guys want a bimbo that doesn't make any sense? She says things, you ask her questions, she answers something else, doesn't have anything to do with the question, doesn't even really make a lot of sense, sounds okay, it's kind of cute. Screw it. Is she kind of foreign looking? Let's go. Let's go. Who is the market for that? Desperate people. People who are not getting what they thought they were going to get from people who said sensible things, who actually made compelling arguments that made sense to them. They were like, hey, we see your problems. We've addressed that the root cause of those problems is as follows. We're going to go fix them. And then people went like, yeah, that makes sense. And then they got in and they were like, surprise. We don't even know what we were talking about. Let's go to war with Iran. Would you like to do that? We're in control of the infallible naval blockade. And all the ships that we want to are getting through, except some of the ships that we want to are getting. We're actually not telling you the truth. We're actually going to just lie to you. Sorry about that. And everyone's like, what about the bimbo? She doesn't seem like she's even capable of lying. She seems like she's too dumb. Let's just see what she has to do. Let's take a gamble. Roll those dice. Desperate people do dumb things. I guess we'll see. Keep an eye on Wisconsin. Pretty excited. It's Tuesday. We're just getting started here in this week, aren't we? Good Lord Almighty. All right, let me see if I have anything funny in the page here. I think I've got some stuff. Political ads. Let's do a political ad. Sometimes people go the other direction. I could do a little bit more like this. This seems kind of funny. Guys, take a deep breath. I don't think this is a real ad, but it sounds real enough. This is what a Republican might run on if they were trying to get elected somewhere where people are mad about what's going on.
Are you sick of transgender migrants running across your backyard? Are you sick of your bitch-ass neighbor calling the cops every time you go out back and shoot their dog? Are you tired of these Muslim teachers instilling Sharia law inside of our daycare centers? Are you happy that everything costs more, including your health insurance? It's time for us to take our state back. Now, you might say, haven't y'all been in power for like the past 30 years? And to that, I'd say, shut up. I'm Bill Buds, running for...
That's Bill Buds. If you guys want a Bill Buds who's sick of you pointing out the obvious, just because you're in charge, just because you have the House and the Senate and the White House, and that you guys are the ones who ran all that stuff, and you already said that thing and you didn't do it, shut up. All right? And vote for Bill Buds. He did say that he was shooting people's dogs that were running across his backyard. That seems a little extreme. Depends on the dog, to be fair. It does seem kind of extreme. All right. That's what I got for you today. I hope you guys have a good Tuesday. Are you working on your Fs? Are you really? I got to tell you, my goal, my aspiration is to finish this year with a 225 multi-rep bench press, which I don't currently have. I'll just let you guys know right up front. I don't bench 225 at the moment, but I used to, and I will again. And I'm going to run multiple back-to-back sub 7-minute miles. I ran 2 yesterday of my 3. So that's the goal. Work on your Fs: firearms, fitness, faith, family, food storage. Have a little bit of fun. We try to do that here at the Kyle Seraphin Show. Share it with a friend. Come back and join us again tomorrow at 09:30 Eastern Time. It'll probably be about the same time. Sometimes I'm a couple minutes late. Look forward to talking to you guys again then. And I hope that your day is fruitful. What was that AOC said? Fruitful. And I hope that you get to expose to people the person that you wish to be when you have the opportunity to be that person who you could be if you only just wished that you were that person that you are. God bless you all. See you on the other end.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.